Hi, my name is Robert. Please read the comments in the About section of this video. It has valuable information and updates. My YouTube channel has a disclaimer video that I encourage you to watch. And please like, share, and subscribe. I hope you found what you're looking for. Thank you very much for watching. Okay, I guess this is work day 4 with the deliverer. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, maybe 4. Anyway, losing count, but let's go ahead and get started. First thing I'm going to do is put a button on that seatbelt thing since I had to replace it, and I have one off another vehicle, so I'm going to pop that button off and transport it to that seatbelt latch there. Well, the fragile button broke coming off the old one, so I'm on the hunt for a couple of more. But they clip and lock in place. You can see the hole in the side of them. That slides down into the button and locks in place. Anyway, I'll go find a couple more or try to find some new ones online. Maybe IPD has them. Well, I still had no boost, so my next step is to pull my turbo intake tubing and inspect all of them for leaks. I'm going to start with the one that goes over the motor down to the lower part of the intercooler to see if this hose up here has a tear in it. I seen one with a tear the other day in the salvage yard. While I start tearing into this turbo system, I'm going to go ahead and do the first drain and fill on this transmission. So I pulled the plug on it, and there's the plug. It has some soot on it. I've seen worse, but clean that off, put it back in, and check it after when I do my next drain and fill. This is what this plug is supposed to look like. I got all the soot and fibers or whatever it is cleaned off of it. I'm going to put it back in with the old washer, mainly because I'm going to do this 3 times, and on the final time is when I'll install a new washer. I believe this is the safest way to service a transmission that is this old, 260,000 miles on it likely, and it needs to have new fresh fluid. But if you take it to some kind of service place and they start pumping fluid back and forth through it, you'll likely have a problem. It'll probably damage the transmission. So I pull the plug, drive 50 to 100 miles, do it again, and after 3 drain and fills, I'm done with it. That's like 87% of the fluid, and yes, it may still be dirty, but it won't be dirty and old fluid like this is. Normally these vehicles take, when you pull the drain plug, about 3.5 quarts will come out, so that's what I put back in them. I do not use high dollar expensive transmission fluid. The owner's manual calls for this Dextron 3 stuff, so that's what I put back in. And this bottom line here represents a 1/2 quart, so I dump it all in nice and slow down until there's a 1/2 quart left. I recommend doing this to these transmissions every 50,000 miles. These transmissions are known to last 400,000 or 500,000 miles with no issues. This is a really slow, drawn out process. I recommend resting the bottle on the front piece that braces across the motor, and then just pouring it in nice and slow into the funnel. Just a nice, slow, steady stream. If you try to go too fast, you're going to overfill the funnel, and then you'll start spilling it down there. So just a nice, thin stream going into the transmission filler dipstick tube. So this is the color of the transmission fluid that I got out of the transmission as I pour it into this container here. Very dark red stuff. Probably stuff you don't want in your transmission. Okay, the first hose I take off has a tear in it. As you can see, that gap right there, I'm sure I'm losing boost pressure through there. So I'm going to see if I have one of those laying around. If so, I'm going to replace it. If not, I'm going to go to the salvage yard for it, because this thing is, I think, $75 brand new. While I check, I'm going to stuff something in the turbo hoses, I just don't want to leave this stuff uncovered for something to crawl in. Here's the one I'm removing. It's got that cut there, but I don't see any evidence of any cuts inside of it. But I'm going to replace it anyway because of the cut there. And this is the one I pulled from the salvage yard, which I don't know if it's newer or not, but heck, it looks a little newer, and it doesn't have any damage on it. So I think online these are like $55. At the salvage yard they're $3.50. It's difficult to get these on and off with your heat shield in place, but you do want to position your clamps so that you can get them on and off easy, if at all possible. I pulled this intermediate hose off and looked at it. Everything on it looks fine. So I took another look at this throttle body hose. When I pull it down, it stretches and seems to have some cracks there. And when I push it up this way, it stretches and seems to have some cracks there. So I'm going to go ahead and pull this hose off and see if it has any apparent damage on the inside, because that could be my problem. Bingo. There I go. So on the bottom back side of the throttle body hose, there's a huge hole. I could see outside through it if I hold this thing up to the sky. So that's where all of my turbo boost is leaking out at. Right there out of that big split. Fortunate for me, I actually have a couple of these that somebody sold me. So I'm going to be good to go, and this car will have its power back. Now I'm going to install a replacement hose that I have, take it for a test drive, and see if it has all the boost pressure and power back. When replacing these hoses, in my opinion, unless you're trying to mock up some performance, it's always best to go back with the original OEM hose. I did not have one of those on hand, so I had a silicone one on hand. Silicone hoses are normally more durable. They will probably last longer. However, they have a couple of drawbacks. Number one, although they are custom, they're usually not perfect. So this hose here, I notice as I have it in place, I can see a little buckle in it here. Maybe when it warms up, that buckle won't be as evident, but it's not a perfect fit. Another thing is, it's hard to get clamps to hold them and keep them in place. So you usually need to use stronger clamps that are designed for silicone hosing, because as your pressure builds, if that clamp is not tight enough, it'll pop loose. And I've heard of many people using silicone hoses have a situation where they hit the gas and the hose just pops off because the clamp couldn't hold it. Another thing, because of the angle of this one, I actually had to loosen this clamp and allow this to come out of the joint a little bit. It's still holding good, but there's tension on this a little bit because this had to come and bend a little bit more. So I got the larger hoses, the larger clamps that I could find and put on these. I tightened them down best I could, so I'll probably come back in 3 or 4 days and tighten them one more time so that they're good and tight and hopefully will never come loose. Also, the air box is pretty dirty, so I'm going to clean that out. I'm going to clean the mass airflow sensor with some airflow sensor cleaner. And this filter is in pretty bad shape. Look like it had probably been wet at one time. So I'm going to replace that with a new one. I'm going to grab my Sharpie or ink pen and date my air filter and drop that in. Somebody had installed some weird clamps up here on the air tube where it connects to the mass airflow sensor. So I had another one I was about to install, and I noticed the air box wasn't sitting tight in there. The boost control solenoid is not connected to the air box. The air box mount is good, but I did notice that the back plug on back here is missing. So I took the air box out and I shook it, and I could hear something bouncing around in it. So when I opened it up, I found this plug in here. Now this plug goes up here where this scoop goes on. So somehow somebody got that dislodged. So I'm going to place that back in there properly. And I'm going to run by the salvage yard and grab a couple things real quick to tighten some of these loose ends up. Next, I got this plug from the junkyard for this air box mount. So I put that in place. I'm going to go ahead, put my air box back, put my tubes back in place, and close up the engine compartment. Okay, I have everything put together. I think I'm all done here. I'm going to clean up my tools, and I'm going to shut this down for today because I got to do a job on a Lexus. Next, I'm going to undo the bolt for that door check strap and contemplate whether I'm going to try to get that mount welded or whatnot, and take this door panel off and replace that check strap for this vehicle. I went on ahead and pulled this bolt out of this hinge strap, and when I did, the piece that it bolted into fell down into the car. So as you can see, that piece of metal has been torn out behind there, so that's a big mess. I might take this car to a welder to see if they could weld that back in place so that I can get this hooked back up. Other than that, this will be a car without a check strap, and they'll have to be careful swinging the door open. Without that strap in place and working properly, you could swing the door open and damage the door if you don't hold it and the wind blows it or something like that. I replaced this cap with this one that I picked up from the salvage yard. I'm going to go ahead and remove and replace this shifter knob with one that's in better condition. This one looks like it's been chewed up by the rodents. Pulled that off, put the replacement one on, just got to tighten up the leather down on the end of it.